Welcome, Dickie.
Thank you.
Listen, I want to start right off the top by saying my condolences for the loss of your father recently, Leon Fleisher, a great artist. The world will miss him. The music world will miss him because he has such an impact and influenced so many musicians and conductors all around the world. So my condolences to you and your family.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm reminded of when he first played for Arthur Schnabel. I think he was 9 years old or something. And he played a Beethoven sonata for him. And when he was done, Schnabel said to him, "Wonderful." And Dad said, "Thank you." And Schnabel said, "Not you, Beethoven."
Can't argue with that. I have to tell you, when I was learning as a conductor of the Brahms and Beethoven concerti, I listened to your father. And I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, that the relationship and the recordings with George Zell and the Cleveland Orchestra, to me, still are the standard. And it was such a wonderful, beautiful relationship because the orchestra and Zell accompanied him so delicately and intimately. And your father's playing, every turn, every phrase, every nuance was right there. And it's just like magical.
Yeah, he was a real time bender. He always tried to play as late as possible without being late. And the phrasing is just incredible how just time just changes.
Yeah. And the amount of color he was able to get out of the keyboard.
Yeah.
That's something I think when great pianists get color like that, it's just extraordinary. So now, did you hear as a young child, was he home playing a lot or was he already touring the world? Were you able to hear that we're practicing at home? And is that how you got the sense of musicianship in your ear?
He was touring most of the time. I do remember hearing him practice, but most of the time he was off traveling the world, playing all these concerts. I think he said at one point he had 21 concertos memorized. Wow. And I asked him when he practiced, when would you practice these? And he said during the concert. So
wow, to have that many notes in your fingers and in your head is amazing.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely amazing. Well, listen, let's talk about you. Great harp player. I really just love your musicianship and your playing. What was the moment you selected this instrument? Was it an event? Was it an experience? Can you tell us how you picked this instrument?
Well, I was 10 years old, and my older sister, I have an older sister, 3 years older, 3 years younger. And when I was 10, I heard her practicing this piece, and this is what made me want to play the harp. And that's the beginning of the Bach E major partita. And just like in the show Chorus Line, I heard Sis go pitter pat. I said I could do that, I could do that. And I said, I want to do that. And I remember, and I practiced just to learn that piece.
Isn't that fabulous? Now we're talking about your older sister, Deborah, is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Yeah, she's a great musician. But there's more to just you in this family that plays a great harp. And Deborah, your wife's a professional harpist, is with Jacksonville Symphony, correct?
Yes, my wife plays Jacksonville Symphony and Grand Park Symphony. She received the first prize from the Paris Conservatory. My grandmother played harp with the Muni Opera in St. Louis for years. And she was also the first female conductor on Broadway, Nettie Druzinski. Wow. And my uncle, her son, was the principal harpist of Chicago Symphony for 42 years.
That's fantastic. So you're really a victim of circumstance.
Well, when you got harp, you play harp. What can I say?
Now, to me, it's a very beautiful instrument. And it seems to me to be one of the most difficult of instruments to play.
Yes and no. It's interesting. What makes the harp easy is the fact that we have pedals on the bottom that set our keys. So if we set in C major and we play, just put an F sharp down, so the fingering on all the scales are the same, unlike the piano, which is, different every time. And also the hands are working symmetrically, so my thumbs are on top all the time. And the melody, which is usually in the top, is with my thumb, which is the strongest finger. And unlike the piano, which is always using its weakest finger for the melody. Also, when we play, that's a quarter note, that's an eighth note, that's a whole note. We really, unless we muffle, which is not that often, the note values, it really only depends on when we come in, not how long we sustain it, because the nature of the instrument is to sustain it. But something like a chromatic scale where you go C, pedal, C sharp, D, pedal, E, half step, F sharp, G, G. So when you have chromatic scales, it gets very tricky. We're running like crazy.
Name a composer that would be very difficult to play when they're constantly moving the key or modulating.
Gershwin. Da dee da 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 da. I mean, that stuff is just, he didn't write for harp because it was just, the Robert Russell Bennett arrangements of Porky and Bess are simplified, but playing anything by Gershwin is just a bear.
It's different on the keyboard for sure, right? I mean, to play it on the piano is much easier than to play it in pedals and have to change. So when our audiences are watching your feet and you're pedaling, it's quite a process up there.
Yes, yeah,
Very
and
good.
some pieces are just ridiculous. Wagner had 56 pedal changes in his fire music in 6.5 measures. So they just, I don't know if he didn't like harpists or what, but some composers don't understand the pedals of the harp, and they give us stuff with ridiculous, even a fast key change we can't do. The great thing with Ravel and let's say La Valse, when he uses two harps, he'll do blisses going up with one set of pedals and blisses going down immediately in the second harp with a totally different set of pedal changes, and it works beautifully.
Because he understood the instrument.
Yes, yeah.
He understood the instrument, correct. Now, like violin playing, Dickie, there's the Guingault, the Galamian school, the French school, the Russian school, the Italian, the French, whatever. Are there different schools of harp playing?
There's basically two different schools. One is what we call the American school, founded by Carlos Salcedo, who was very strict in the elbows up, the arms up, high thumbs. I mean, both schools have high thumbs, but he was very big on this. And the French school is very low. Also, instead of the hand being like this, the hand goes down and points down, and it uses more finger when you pluck the string, so you'll get more of a rounded sound, whereas the American school is more on your fingertips. But both of them have high thumbs. It's just a matter of what you do. Also, the American school, which is really, I don't know, I guess you can't trust the students sometimes from the teachers, because a lot of the harpists will do this kind of motion. And that is strictly American school. They don't do that in Europe.
Wow. That probably looks nice at a wedding. But
yeah. Yeah.
What school do you play or prefer?
Well, I actually studied with my uncle, who was a student of Salcedo at Curtis, but he was not strict like that. And so he was more relaxed, nice hand position. And I also studied in France with Laskin and Barreau, who of course were very traditional French. So I think every harpist should find their in-between position. In the orchestra playing, I don't have time to do this kind of stuff. So I'm very close to the harp, and my concern is high thumb, face the instrument, and keep those fingers round. And that's, I guess, what I focus on when I play.
Right. How do you change color on a harp? Is there a certain part of the fingers, or is it the intensity of the pluck or the stroke that can change the color?
We normally play in the middle of the string. We can play low, get a guitar sound. We can do harmonics. that's pretty much it as far as the color. As far as dynamics, it's you play soft or you just pluck harder and play loud.
Beautiful. Now, I know that when you arrive at a rehearsal, you're there before anyone else arrives, because the maintenance and the tuning of the instrument is really an important part of playing. And I think once you told me something that was very funny. He says harp players spend half their life tuning and the other half playing out of tune.
Yeah, especially what happens when the audience comes in and then the hall shuts down the air conditioner because it's too loud or something. So what happens, because the strings are made of 3 different materials, down here we have steel, wound steel. In the middle we have gut, made out of sheep or cow intestine, and on top we have nylon, which is similar to fishing line, but it's perfectly round. Fishing line is flatter. And what happens when it gets cold, the metal contracts and the nylon expands. So you can imagine trying to keep something steady, or if you have an air conditioner blowing on you, or terrible if you come to the hall and it was raining outside and you have the humidity. So yes, it is a constant battle.
Wow. What type of manufacturers are out there now? How many harp makers are there in the world?
Well, in the United States, there's Lion & Healy, which is the major manufacturer in the world. Kamek is a big company in France. They make them in Russia, Aoyama in Japan, Germany, Hongacher. So there's maybe 5 or 6 manufacturers of harps, and pretty much the major ones are the Lion & Healy and the Kamek in France.
Great. Do you use different harps for different repertoire, or do you have a favorite instrument that you use?
Well, this harp right here is the harp I use when I play with a Philharmonic, and I'll show you the top. It's a Lion & Healy style 23 gold concert grand, and I try not to pick favorites, but this is certainly one that I would use for important concerts and recitals. And one of the nice things about this, I'll show you a picture of this guy over here playing it. So that's a picture of Harpo Marx. And this harp that I have was used in 4 of his movies, from A Night at the Opera, Day at the Races, The Big Store. So if you ever watch those movies, you can see Harpo playing it.
So that's the one you use in my orchestra.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Matter of fact, you have a plaque on there, don't you?
Yes. It says serial number 3378, originally owned by Harpo Marx.
That's fantastic.
And that was given to me by the head of Lion & Healy, Steve Fritzman.
Wow, what a treasure. What a treasure. But you don't change harps for different repertoire. You like this instrument and this is the one you use.
Yes. Yeah. You know, if I'm going to play an outdoor wedding, I'll use another harp, of course. But normally I would just keep this one at the hall in the temperature controlled, humidity controlled climate.
Wonderful. Oh, that's terrific. What a treasure. What a treasure. Now, I know you have a bit of an addiction for harps.
Well,
how many harps do you have?
You know, I used to be a collector. I started about 30 years ago. I bought my wife a harp. In fact, it's over here, an old French harp, as a wedding present. And a week later, someone asked me if I had a harp that they can rent. And so I rented that out, and I said, you know, I could do something with this. And roughly 200 harps later, you know, I say I used to be a collector, and now I'm really just a hoarder. But you know, every harp is unique, and it's from a different tree. It feels different. It plays different. And you know, I just love the instrument.
That's wonderful. So do you have in your possession now over 200 instruments?
Yes, I have probably 75, 80 on rental. They're very hard to, you know, the pedal harps are quite expensive. And if someone wants to start the harp, pedal harps will start at $10,000. So, you know, I picked these up antique stores and restored them. I work on the harps. And then when I have students who want to learn, you can, you know, we'll all be playing the harp someday. So start now for $100 a month.
Except for conductors, I'm not so sure.
There's a special place for you, and it's called the accordion.
Dress light, yeah. Well, that's a wonderful service you're doing for these people that are learning. Do you find that is it just students like in high school, middle school that are learning, or do you have older people who are interested and intrigued to learn this instrument?
I have a student here in Naples. She was an organist and a violinist, and she started 2 years ago, and now she's 90 years old. So wow. She started when she was 88 years old, and all the time I get people who tell me I always wanted to play the harp, and I want to learn. And, you know, especially now with the COVID going around, I guess a lot of people say, hey, I got nothing to do. I'll just learn the harp because business is good. And I think if we have a bubonic plague next year, I can retire.
Be careful what you wish for. So basically, an instrument is like a violin. They all, even though they're constructed similarly, they all speak differently. They're all different makers. They all different personalities. Do you think you picked the harp, or did the harp pick you?
The instrument, the particular instrument, or
like when you had that first experience with your sister, and you heard that that piece. Do you think it was because, you know, the instrument, in my mind, for great musicians like yourselves and artists, the instrument is beautiful, but it's really your voice coming through to say something, to change the world, to make it a better place. You know, like a painter paints, or an author writes. You know, I think for musicians, this is an extension of your heart and soul. Do you feel that, because you have to be one, is what I'm saying. Do you feel from that first moment that the harp grabbed you, or you just said, oh, I like that? It
grabbed me. There's no question, because I play the flute also. Of course, I started with piano. When I was 5, I started the violin. And I never took to any of them, but the harp, it was it. You know, it just, it chose
your voice. You found your voice. Absolutely. That's great. Would you be able to show us some of the instruments in your collection?
Sure. So I can go in a way chronologically here. So on this side of my house, of my hoarding house, I have the old harps from the early 1800s, old French harps, Erards. And in fact, over here, I have a beautiful Cousineau harp.
Wow.
Look at the workmanship on that back in the day. And next to it is a Vietnamese harp that was just custom made for somebody, all carved.
Beautiful.
And then these French harps. What's incredible about these harps to me, these are Erards. This harp is an Erard made by Erard in the mid-1800s. And on the bottom, I don't know if I can show you, but the bottom has gargoyles.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And then, so there's one here. Here's another one over here, a gargoyle. I have 2 more gargoyles, and they're all different. So not only back in the day did you get to pick your harp, but I guess you get to pick what kind of gargoyle you want. So these are from the mid-1800s. The double action harp started in about the 1820s, and that's what we use today. These harps over here are called chromatic harps. I don't know if you can see, there's strings, hard to see, the strings on both sides, and so they have twice as many strings. It was before the pedals were invented. And then up here on top, they had tuning. If you want to tune the harp, you can match it with the bells.
Wow.
Over here this is an interesting harp here. This harp, I bought it at an auction in Jacksonville. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. There's a plaque on here that says Emerand. And on this side, there was a plaque that said Model 7F. no idea what it was. And I thought I was pretty good at this stuff. And I got home, I took off the plaque, and underneath it says made in China. So you never know what you're going to get.
Wow.
Over here, this is the 11th harp that Lyon and Healy made. Beautiful. Early model 23. Hand painted bottom. And you can see the side carving, gorgeous carvings on the back of the instrument, which you very rarely see anymore. And then in this room, I have, as you can see, more harps. They breed like rabbits, I tell you. And, all the way there.
Wow, beautiful.
I'd like to show you a harp here. This one is a lever harp over here. And this is actually made by a guy in Naples. He lives out in the Everglades. Gorgeous workmanship. So the difference between the small harp is there's no pedals on the bottom. There's only these levers that I have to move to tune each individual string. And this harp sounds like
wow, that's beautiful. There's no place like Naples.
So this harp, particular wood, is Madagascar ebony. He made them in, the first one is cheche wood, ash wood. Can't remember the name of that one. Royal ebony, olive wood. But those are all veneers, of course, because harps, like all musical instruments, are made with spruce sounding board, Sitka spruce, and maple sides and neck for strength.
That's fantastic. What a beautiful collection. Congratulations. That's quite something.
Thank you.
You could open a museum.
Yeah, 15 cents a shot. Yeah.
Dickie, we have time for a couple of questions. People are writing in some questions.
Great.
One of our listeners says, what interesting or different projects have you done this year, if any? And do you have any interesting projects coming up?
Harp-wise?
Yes.
It's just learning new music. I think playing with Philharmonic, I only played, 4 times this season. So I'm playing a sport trio in April that I've never played before. The trick is to stay motivated. Your love and passion for the instrument, the fact that you don't really have jobs lined up still keeps me motivated to practice and to learn new repertoire. And that's important, that we don't just stagnate, that we keep practicing.
That's a good point. I've heard this from several colleagues of mine around the country, actually, because every orchestra is in the same position. They're saying that because of the heavy and busy schedules that they normally keep, once September begins, it doesn't stop. And you're going from one concert to the next, and the next, and the next, and you always have to be ahead repertoire-wise. So you're right, you're working on things that you are you have to play. It wasn't your idea always, you know what I mean? Right. So now I heard from several friends that said they're actually home playing Bach again and doing things that they really want to play and working on their actual playing again.
It's so funny how so many musicians go back to Bach because that's what they want to do. And normally I would spend the summers, I have 3 months off in my orchestra, and I would spend the summer learning next year's repertoire. But since this year was pretty much canceled, it's just, okay, what do I want to learn? What do I need to practice? And what can potentially be coming up?
Right. We have one more question here for you, Dickie. It says, how do you feel the internet has impacted the music business, especially this year during the pandemic?
Well, I know that a lot of people are Zoom lessons. They're doing the lesson through Zoom. I know someone who's got 40 students and he's going crazy on the computer all the time. You know, the lessons, my father didn't like it. He didn't like Zoom lessons. It lost a big part of teaching, he felt. And, you know, not being hands-on, but, you know, trying to see what's going on with the technique or even the subtleties of the musicality is really hard to pick up on the computer. But, you know, hopefully we wear our masks and we'll get over with this and get back to life.
I agree with that, you know, and hopefully by September we'll be back into a regular schedule again. And the beautiful thing is, I really believe that because we've been isolated so much and we've been deprived of so much of things that we love to do, like the symphony, that I think when we are able to gather again, it's going to be so wonderful and it's going to be appreciated even more.
Great. Yes.
I really feel that way. But also the technology, like this program here behind the notes, you and I were able to converse. We're in different locations and people all over the country can tune into this rather than drive into to see us, you know, that type of thing. So the technology is not a bad thing. It actually probably will continue and should continue even when we do return to Symphony Hall. But because this way we get to share with our patrons and friends, and I get to still hang out and talk to a great guy like yourself.
Oh, thank you. And I want to thank all the patrons who come to your concerts because they're well attended and it's great they support it. Supporting the arts is wonderful.
Our patrons are just wonderful. I know, you know, they come in and they pay for those seats, but they don't sit in them. They're standing up, yelling, screaming, and applauding all the time. But they're great people. They love the orchestra, and we love you. And thank you for being a part of it.
My pleasure.
Listen, Dickie, thank you for your time. It's great to get to know you. Folks, I want to remind you, there's a concert coming up December 19th at FSW, but you need to get tickets in advance. We're not selling them at the event. It's an outdoor, socially distanced concert for the orchestra and the public. So we hope to see you there. Call the office, get your tickets. We're going to be back, baby. Dickie Fleisher, thank you. And thank you for watching, folks.
Thank you.